Hello everyone, wishing you all a peaceful and happy new day. Welcome back and join me on my journey. Is this seemingly tranquil life truly peaceful? Or are new storms silently waiting behind the scenes, where danger lurks amidst the best things? Another day begins for me like any other. My life is filled with simple but arduous tasks. Harvesting fruits to sell at the market, then continuing with farm work to earn a meager income. All for one goal, to raise Tom and Quinn through difficult times, yet filled with love. Today, I continue my familiar work. And amidst these hard days, I am fortunate to have a small support system in the form of Miss Men, a vendor who lives not far from my house. Sympathizing with Han's difficult circumstances, Men always secretly helped her, occasionally looking after little Tom, so Han could go to the market with peace of mind, especially on unpredictable rainy days. The moment Han left, Men and little Tom were playing together, their childish laughter dispelling some of the mother's worries. But would this brief peace last? Or was this just a lull before new events struck, plunging Han into even harsher challenges? Walking along the familiar path, Han stopped in front of a cassava field ready for harvest. Each heavy swing of the hoe struck the damp soil, revealing the ivory-white cassava tubers. Han's eyes lit up with rare joy. She carefully broke off each tuber, neatly arranging them in one place, as if cherishing each fruit earned with sweat and effort. The cassava plants were uprooted one by Han's calloused hands. A single mother possessing an unwavering, almost silent resilience. Before the sweat on her forehead had even dried, a sudden downpour began, heavy and bitterly cold. Without a moment's rest, Han hastily hoisted her basket of cassava onto her back and hurried home. At that moment, only one thought occupied her mind. Little Tom was waiting, and for her child, nothing could stop her strong will. As the rain subsided, dawn appeared near Han's simple house. The man, dressed in his police uniform, carried the responsibility of protecting the villagers' peace, but more importantly, a heart filled with quiet concern. He came to find Han, his calls echoing in the silent space. "Han." There was no reply. Approaching closer, Dan realized the door was locked from the outside. He understood that Han had gone to the fields early that morning. Dan's gaze lingered on the unfinished porch, the makeshift staircase dilapidated by the years. While outside, countless storms and unimaginable things were silently brewing. Dark conspiracies were unfolding, waiting for the single mother from those who seemed the kindest and most virtuous. Amidst this fragile whirlwind, the appearance of the police officer was like a timely and perfectly placed arrangement. Without him, perhaps no one could be sure where Han's life would have drifted. Returning to the familiar convenience store, just in time to escape the rain, Han was reunited with little Tom. She had only been away from her child for one morning, but the feeling in Han's heart was as if they had been separated for ages. It was a feeling only maternal love could bring. All fatigue, anxiety, and fear vanished in the moment. Han hugged and held little Tom in her arms. For Han, little Tom was not just her child, but also a gift, the greatest treasure of her life. As a token of gratitude, Han gave Maine some cassava roots she had just harvested that morning, a small but sincere gift filled with heartfelt appreciation. Then, the two of them said goodbye to Man and continued their familiar journey. Today's destination was the bustling market, with rows of stalls lined up on both sides. Han secretly hoped for a successful day of sales so she could get home earlier. Han chose a small corner by the roadside of the market, and before she had even displayed her cassava, it was all sold out. It was unclear whether it was because the cassava was fresh and delicious, or because luck had finally begun to smile upon Han's otherwise difficult life. The first customers came and went, and Han quickly packed up to return home. On the way home, many thoughts flashed through Han's mind. She stopped by the roadside and bought a few small chickens. Perhaps Han was harboring a new plan for the future, vague yet full of hope. Meanwhile, in the quiet little house, the rhythmic sound of hammers and the scraping of saws shattered the desolation. The policeman continued his work diligently, unaware that Han had returned. It wasn't until Han's soft voice called out, "Don." Their eyes met. A touch of surprise, a fleeting joy, needed no words. Dan smiled gently, opening the door for Han to come inside, When little Tom was fast asleep, Han quietly went to help him continue the repairs. Their hands moved in unison, the silences becoming unusually warm. The small house, once so desolate, now seemed to be gradually warming, not only by the sounds of hammers and saws, but by the silent and sincere presence of Dan. Without hesitation, Dan got to work. He single-handedly carried large stones, carefully measuring and meticulously cutting each bamboo pole. Each hammer blow, each movement was slow but steady. He only feared that, on dark, stormy nights, if the stairs and porch weren't repaired in time, Han and her mother could be in danger at any moment. Amidst that quiet scene, Dan's concern needed no words, yet it was enough warmth to dispel some of the coldness that Han was enduring in her life. And perhaps, it was from these small things that something was gradually changing in the turbulent life of the single mother. Everything in the small house was gradually being completed. Han took a break, quietly peeling and cutting the cassava roots she had dug up that morning, boiling them to offer to Dan. The dish was simple, not fancy or luxurious, but it represented all the sincere feelings Han had for such a kind person. The two ate and chatted, sharing unfinished stories of life in gentle, honest voices. In that rare, cozy space, it seemed that all the hardships and difficulties of life temporarily faded away. Suddenly, Dan's phone rang, shattering the peaceful moment. An urgent call from work, signaling he had to return to duty. Dan quickly stood up, his eyes still reflecting a lingering regret he hadn't yet expressed. Fortunately, it was also late afternoon, and little Quinn, the girl Han had adopted, was about to finish school. Dan offered to drive Han to pick up Quinn if it was convenient. Touched by his kindness and sincerity, Han could only nod slightly in agreement, though still feeling a little hesitant and unsure. The motorbike started in the late afternoon. Han gently carried little Tom on the back of Dan's motorbike. The vehicle slowly rolled along, carrying three people with three different emotions, merging into the familiar road. Ahead lay a road of unknowns. But at least in this moment, peace was present. Fragile yet strangely warm. As Han and Dan's figures disappeared down the small road, a strange man suddenly appeared behind the house, hidden beneath the dense foliage. No one noticed. His presence was silent and cold, like a formless shadow. The man was tall and thin, with an unsavory appearance. His eyes darkened, watching Han and Dan's every move from afar. He stood there for a long time, silent and motionless, as if he had been observing everything beforehand. Was this a harbinger of a new storm about to engulf the single mother's life? And why was he here, at the exact moment Han left the house? When the small house fell completely silent, the tranquility suddenly became eerie. With no one else around, the man slowly approached the front yard. He glanced around, muttering incoherent words. It seemed Han's presence in this small house had irritated him so much that he couldn't control himself. In a fit of rage, he ruthlessly destroyed everything in sight. From the gourd trellis in front of the porch, the newly repaired chicken coop roof, to even the light bulb, the only source of light illuminating the house when night fell. Each act of destruction carried a vengeful intent, as if he wanted to erase all traces of Han from this place. It goes without saying that he wanted Han and the children to leave as soon as possible, to be kicked out of this small house, out of the land he considered not to belong to them. Not far away, Han, along with little Quinn and little Tom, were still enjoying rare moments of peace. Children's laughter echoed in the late afternoon, completely unaware that at this very moment, their small home was being invaded, and an invisible danger was silently encroaching upon their lives. Then, as usual, Han, along with little Quinn and little Tom, walked along the familiar dirt road leading to their small house. But as soon as she arrived, the sight before her stunned Han. Everything had been completely turned upside down. The gourd trellis had collapsed, the awning was tilted, and belongings were scattered all over the yard. A strange feeling flashed through her mind, but Han didn't suspect anything at all. In her simple mind, Han just assumed that the strong afternoon wind had blown away the awning, causing everything to fall apart like this. Without complaining or blaming anyone, after lulling little Tom to sleep, Han quietly began cleaning up the remaining debris. Time passed, and the sky darkened, but the work was still not finished. The sunset faded, leaving only overlapping shadows around the small house. Thinking of the chicks she had just bought, Han tried to cover the chicken coop, fearing that if a storm came at night, they would get wet and freeze to death. However, in her haste and in the darkness, Han accidentally slipped. A sudden fall caused her excruciating pain, her injured leg making it impossible to get up immediately. Han bit her lip, struggling to get up amidst the pain, completely unaware that the strange man's figure hadn't left. He lurked in the shadows, watching Han's every move for who knows how long. Hearing the fall and the unusual noise, he deliberately moved closer, his footsteps so light they were almost silent. Under the flickering, dim light of the oil lamp emanating from the small house, Han continued to fidget inside, completely unaware that a pair of eyes were watching her intently from the darkness outside. The already desolate house now felt colder and more terrifying than ever. But as he moved closer, until he could clearly see Han's face in the flickering oil lamplight, a scene unfolded that stunned him. Before him was the image of a 16-year-old single mother, cradling her small, frail child, with little Quinn huddled beside her in a dilapidated, impoverished house. In that cramped and cold space, Han still struggled to survive each day, silently battling against the harsh realities of life. At that moment, something deep within him seemed to awaken. All his schemes and intentions to drive Han away vanished. His initial anger and hatred gradually gave way to feelings of remorse and regret. Hiding in the dim shadows, he began to clearly feel the wrongness of his actions. The images of his recent vandalism of the small house became a deep wound in his conscience. But at this moment, he lacked the courage to confront Han, the bravery to admit his mistakes. He could only stand there, silently observing from afar, letting the feeling of guilt grow silently within him. Meanwhile, Han, under the dim oil lamp, continued to care for her children, completely unaware that behind the shadows, another fate was also reeling from the consequences of her actions. And then, a sudden night rain poured down, heavy raindrops falling on the makeshift roof. In the hazy rain, the beams of flashlights flickered on the dirt road, police officers on patrol, silently carrying out their duty to protect the villagers' security in the dark night. The final stop for Don and another officer was Han's house. Don worried about the storm, fearing that the small, fragile house would not be able to withstand it. He approached, inquired about the situation, and reminded Han to be extremely careful and ensure the safety of her children during the stormy night. Meanwhile, the stranger hadn't left yet. He huddled in the corner, his breath almost held. He was now only a few steps away from the two police officers. His heart pounded in his chest, fear overwhelming him as he thought that if he were discovered, he might be mistaken for a thief or plotting something evil. He stood still, not daring to move, letting the cold rain soak into him. Those moments felt endless. But then, after giving their instructions, the two police officers turned and left, their flashlight beams disappearing into the rain. The stranger silently breathed a sigh of relief. The tension had only intensified his fear and guilt. The rain continued to fall, but deep down, something had changed, silently and indescribably.